Hello, this is Samantha Shares. This episode covers NCUA's board briefing on field of membership, also known as FOM. The following is an audio version of that briefing in their own voice. This podcast is educational and is not legal advice. We are sponsored by Credit Union Exam Solutions Incorporated, whose team has over 240 years of National Credit Union Administration experience. We assist our clients with NCUA so they save time and money. If you are worried about a recent, upcoming, or in-process NCUA examination, reach out to learn how they can assist at marktrickle.com. Also check out our other podcast called With Flying Colors, where we provide tips on how to achieve success with NCUA. And now the briefing.
The final item today is the new charter and field of membership update that was requested by Vice Chairman Hoffman. Staff presenting this board briefing include Martha Ninitchuk, Director, Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, and Leilani Stamper, Consumer Access Division Director, Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion. Good morning, Martha. Good morning, Leilani. Always good to see both of you. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Harper, Vice Chairman Hoffman, and Board Member Otska. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today about our continued efforts to improve processes and support the development of new federal credit unions and the expansion of established federal credit unions. Slide 2, please. Today's briefing focuses on new charter application data for 2024, process improvements in chartering, the Provisional Charter Pilot, and field of membership updates. Slide 3. CURE analysis of new charter applications ensures their compliance with the Federal Credit Union Act, Section 1753, and the regulations governing new charters. 12 CFR Part 701, Organization and Operation of Federal Credit Unions, and 12 CFR Part 701 Appendix B, Chartering and Field of Membership Manual. Slide 4. I should note for those organizing groups seeking a state charter, the charter approval process is through its state supervisory authority. If an applicant also seeks to have the state chartered credit union federally insured, they'll need to submit an insurance application to the NCUA. The NCUA will review the application, including the business and marketing plan for insurability, and will conduct a background and review of credit officials and senior staff if the SSA does not provide this information. Federal share insurance approval will be contingent upon the applicant obtaining SSA approval of its state charter. Additional information for insuring new state charters is found on our NCUA website under Support Services, Credit Union Resources and Expansion, and New Charters. Slide 5. Slide 5 reflects the number of credit unions chartered since 2018. During 2024, the NCUA chartered 3 credit unions with the hope to have 4 chartered by the end of the year. 2 of the 4 are participants in the Provisional Charter Pilot. You'll hear more about the pilot later in this presentation. In 2024, 1 state-chartered credit union was approved, but it is not included in the federal charter numbers as shown on Slide 5. Please. Slide 6 reflects the average number of days to review a complete application to approve charter. The average review and approval time in 2023 was 152 days, compared to 215 days so far in 2024. Over the last 12 months, CURE has seen an increase in the number of unique new charter applications with concepts that take additional time for review. For those applications that are more complex, CURE works with subject matter experts within the agency, as well as the Office of General Counsel. 24 was also the year the Provisional Pilot was launched, requiring additional time by staff working with organizing groups in the pilot program. Staff work with organizing groups with the intent of approving the charter. Not only are they focused on getting the organizing group to a yes, but also on providing good customer service. Slide 7, please. Over the last 5 years, field of memberships for newly chartered credit unions include 9 community, 2 multiple common bond, 7 single multiple common bonds. So far in 2024, there are a total of 3 new charters, one single associational, and 2 community charters. Slide 8. The data shown on slide 8 represents those actions taken in 2024. In other words, application actions this year may have been from applications received prior to 2024. But to date, in 2024, 14 new charter applications have been reviewed. 3 out of the 14 applications were approved. 1 was denied, 6 were deferred, and 1 application was withdrawn. Currently, CURE has 3 applications under review. New charter process improvements implemented last year have been helpful in providing more transparent instruction to organizing groups as they move through the 3 phases of chartering. Newly developed management tools are used by CURE to assess the status of new charter requests and are used by board offices and the Office of Executive Director to provide monthly progress updates. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Leilani Stamper, CURE's Consumer Access Division Director, to provide an update on the Provisional Charter Pilot.
Thank you, Martha, and good morning.
Morning.
Chairman Harper, Vice Chairman Hotman, and Board Member Otska. I would like to take a few minutes to update you on the NCUA Provisional Charter Program and the implementation of the Provisional Charter Pilot. Last year, the Provisional Charter concept was established to address organizing groups' challenges to secure startup capital due to it not being a legal entity. A provisional charter is a stage in the post-chartering process where credit union organizing groups become a legal entity but have limited authority until securing capital levels estimated in their business plan. The credit union will be given approximately 12 months to secure additional capital and meet other requirements as stated in the Letter of Understanding and Agreement. Next slide, please. CURE successfully developed and implemented a pilot program for the Provisional Charter concept during the third quarter of 2023. The selection process for the candidates to participate in the pilot program involved a thorough analysis of 63 organizing groups that had completed their Phase 1. Selection criteria included a pre-approved field of membership, 1 organizing group per region, the field of membership size, their funding strategies, and upon analysis, whether the proposed credit union had a strong potential for growth and success. Ultimately, CURE chose 4 qualified candidates for the pilot program. Next slide, please. To date, CURE has chartered 2 of the 4 selected candidates. The 2 federally chartered credit unions are Tribe Federal Credit Union and Fairbreak Federal Credit Union. Tribe Federal Credit Union is a minority depository low-income designated credit union serving the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Fairbreak Federal Credit is a minority depository low-income credit union serving Memphis, Tennessee area. Both credit unions will have 1 year to obtain the required donated capital to become fully operational. If they fail to reach their targeted capital levels within a year, each regional staff will decide to either extend the provisional period, merge, or liquidate the credit union. Among the 2 remaining applicants, 1 submitted their Phase 2 application in the third quarter of 2024, while the other chose to withdraw from the pilot program. We intend to review the pilot program at the end of 2024 and provide recommendations for the program's future in 2025. NCUA sees the Provisional Charter Program and our phased chartering process as proven examples of NCUA working to find solutions to charter new credit unions. That concludes my remarks at this time. Martha will provide an update on field of membership.
Thanks, Leilani. Slide 12, please. CURE continues to improve its field of membership application process for credit unions. Beginning in July of this year, CURE implemented a new process using the pre-internet system, allowing multiple common bond credit unions to add all occupational and associational groups to their field of membership by inputting the group's information and uploading documents if applicable. By enhancing the Capri system, credit unions can now add all groups of any size for multiple common bond credit unions. A future enhancement for the Capri system will allow credit unions to upload their community and underserved area application with supporting documentation. The target date for release of this update is first quarter 2025. Slide 13. This slide shows the field of membership actions approved in 2024. As you can see, over 7,200 internet applications were approved so far in 2024, with a total. Slide 14. Slide 14 breaks down the underserved area applications. CURE continues to see an increase in the number of applications to add underserved areas. The top line of the chart, underserved area applications processed, reflects the total number of applications reviewed by CURE analysts from 2020 to 2024 year to date. The second line reflects the total number of applications approved. Line 3 reflects the number of application deferrals, with the last line reflecting the number of applications withdrawn. The increase in number of underserved applications from 32 applications in 2020 to 87 applications so far this year is a significant increase, especially when the complexity of the underserved application is taken into consideration. The resulting workload is significant. CURE analysts allocate a large number of hours working with credit unions on their underserved applications. For example, as of September 30th, 2024, analysts spent approximately 10,440 hours processing 87 underserved applications. When a credit union's application is deferred and resubmitted, the analyst review time could potentially double. We have heard industry concerns about the time it takes to approve these complex applications. CURE continues to manage workload by assigning applications based on complexity and number of all pending applications. CURE analysts will continue to work with the credit unions to ensure applications meet all underserved area requirements, and the NCUA will continue to support process changes that provide positive customer experiences. In conclusion, the NCUA has supported the growth of newly chartered and field of membership expansions of already established credit unions by streamlining much of the application process, in addition to providing guidance and information resources to credit unions as they move through the application process. It is hoped credit unions are better able to understand the NCUA regulatory requirements and recognize an overall improvement in transparency of the applications review process. Thank you for your time today, and we are ready to address your questions.
Thank you so much, Martha and Leilani, for your briefing on new charters and field of membership expansions. And thank you to the entire team and the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, or CURE for short, for your continued work to support the growth and development of credit unions of all sizes, especially the efforts of small credit unions, low-income credit unions, minority depository institutions, and credit unions that seek to deepen access to safe, fair, and affordable financial products and services in under-resourced communities. CURE's work in supporting the chartering of new credit unions and any credit union seeking charter changes, bylaw amendments, field of membership expansions, and low-income designations is vital to a healthy and diverse financial system. And CURE's work delivering online training and resources and providing grants and loans through the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund enables eligible credit unions to better serve their members and communities' financial needs. In short, CURE's work aims to create a financial system that works for all, a philosophy that underlies the purpose of the credit union movement. As noted earlier, the agency has approved 3 new charters thus far in 2024, in addition to providing share insurance to 1 new state charter. There are also 3 new charter applications under review. 3 or 4 new charters per year may not sound like a lot, but it represents positive momentum and aligns with historic trends. Undoubtedly, the emergence of non-depository financial institutions and fintechs, as well as the pressure to achieve economies of scale, are contributing to the low number of organizing groups seeking to charter a new credit union. And while the NCUA cannot alter this economic reality, we are making strides in the areas we can change namely assisting prospective credit union organizing groups with gaining the required capital, as well as streamlining and reducing the length of the chartering process. The NCUA's Provisional Charter program allows organizing groups to show that they have the capacity to start a credit union, which in turn could facilitate their efforts to raise needed capital. As noted earlier, the NCUA has already approved 2 provisional charters, and another is in phase 2 of the application process. Decreasing the average number of days from the receipt of a complete application to an improved charter certainly modernizes, facilitates, and streamlines the chartering process. A contributing factor to the overall reduction in the review process includes CURE's automated management system for chartering. And although the average number of days is up in 2024, the time to complete the process today is well below the levels that we saw in 2018 and 2020. So thank you for your good work and leadership in that. By facilitating the process through which credit union organizers can access the initial capital needed for capital standards, loss reserves, and operating expenses, and streamlining and automating the application process, the NCUA is making it easier and supporting promising organizing groups to form a credit union. But obtaining a credit union charter, however, is not supposed to be easy or simplistic. With a charter comes the responsibility to promote financial well-being of members in a safe, sound, and consumer-friendly manner. It also comes with certain compliance requests and needs like anti-money laundering. This delicate balance requires us to both be purposeful and careful. Within statutory, safety and soundness, and consumer protection guardrails, the NCUA is committed to working with promising organizing groups to get to yes whenever possible. Thanks to the works of the CURE team, as well as the Vice Chairman's steady focus on this priority, and I really do want to thank his steady focus, the NCUA has made meaningful strides during the past 4 years in facilitating the chartering process so that organizers can pursue their visions of people helping people. Welcoming a new credit union into the system of cooperative credit is good, not only for the system, but also good for the consumer, many of whom have been unbanked or underserved for far too long. And the NCUA's mission, in part, is to protect the system of cooperative credit and its member holders through effective chartering and supervision. For closing, I do have a few questions for you. First, if we could pull up slide 14, I'd like to get to a better understanding about the number of underserved applications. It's risen considerably since 2020. We went from 32 to 72 to 98. That's a large jump and a large increase in workload.
It is.
What's behind those numbers?
Well, from our viewpoint, our standpoint, there has been a concerted effort by the industry to encourage credit unions to expand into underserved areas. Many times the underserved areas are banking deserts, which credit unions are uniquely structured to serve. These areas actually also provide more growth opportunities for credit unions.
So it's that our rules have changed. We have more applications coming in.
Yes.
They're bigger applications.
They are larger applications. So don't forget, multiple common bond credit unions are the only type of charter that
Correct.
we can, or that is able to add underserved areas. So we see an uptick in multiple common bond credit unions seeking to serve underserved areas, where they are able to increase more than 2.5 million in population, which is more than what a community charter is able to add without going through the public hearing process.
Right. For those credit unions with approved underserved expansion applications, I understand that not all of them have opened up the requisite branches in those underserved areas within 24 months, as required by our rules. How is CURE handling those deficiencies?
Right. So thank you for that question. CURE identifies those credit unions that have not established a service facility within 2 years of adding an underserved area, and that is the requirement. CURE sends the credit union a notification inquiring if a service facility has been added to the credit union. If they have added a service facility, we update our database with the information. If not, we ask the credit union if they plan to open a service facility and then provide us a service status report to review if the credit union has been providing financial services as stated within their original business plan received during the field of membership expansion application. Ultimately, if a service facility is not opened and the credit union does not plan to open one, the underserved areas are removed from the credit union's charter.
I think that's an important point. I think of the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you have a plan to serve an underserved area, you need to build it so that they will come and get access to those financial services. Martha, my next set of questions focuses on process. If we could pull up slide 5, that slide shows that in 2024, we chartered 1 federal credit union and issued 2 provisional charters for a total of 3 new credit unions. What more can be done to shorten the application to charter process? And also, what's the most significant obstacle to obtaining a charter?
I'm going to punt that to Leilani.
Okay. Leilani,
I'll
let me
take that
ask you
question. Sure. Well, what we really believe in, we would like to continue to encourage organizing groups to really go to our website. We have some amazing resources there. One being how to start at a new charter with step-by-step instruction on that process. Including in that is detailed each of our phases and what that looks like for the organizer. We also have resources and templates that we share on the website. So we believe that if the organizers go to our website and get all this information, when they do finally submit the application, it will be cleaner and have all of the required, hopefully all the required information needed so that when the coordinators do review it, it's a shorter time.
Leilani, first of all, let me give you a shout out not only to the work of the team in CURE, but also I know this 3-phased process was something that originated in our management development program, and that team
That's correct.
Really did a great job of re-envisioning it. Leilani, can you just go a little bit deeper? I know that the vice chairman and I often talk about the chicken and the egg argument. You can't get a charter without the capital, and you can't get the capital without the charter. How is the provisional charter helping that?
Well, we've got 2 charters.
Right.
And so they have with the 2 that we've chartered, they have been actively trying to get grants and actively trying to see if loans are possible and sub-debt. So we're in kind of this
Research phase.
Phase to see what works and what doesn't work. But we're hopeful. We are hopeful that we will be able to bring a recommendation that we would like to continue the program.
Yeah. So you may not know this, but my dad started a teacher's credit union in 1967. His dad started a credit union at a soap factory in 1934. And certainly we've seen greater complexity. Do these provisional charters have the policies and procedures that we would expect a credit union to have and getting started before they get the provisional charter?
They do. And then once they are chartered, our field examiner works closely with them to ensure that the policies and procedures that they need to move their operations forward are in place.
That's great. One other question I have is you talked about the number of deferrals that we've seen on the new charters. What's the reasoning behind these deferrals?
Well, most times deferrals are come from a myriad of reasons. There's different components to the application, but mainly the business plan's not supported in full by the other components of the application, so they don't all tie together. So they have a business plan, a marketing plan that doesn't tie in. They have a pro forma statement also, that projects over 5 years. That data doesn't support the products and services that they want to offer. I mean, it is a complex process, as you said. Starting a new charter is not necessarily an easy task. But for each deferral, we write explicit directions on what the organizing group, or if a credit union has a field of membership deferral, what they need to do to comply. And
Yeah.
then we actually hold a phone call with the credit union or the organizing group to walk them through it as they are actually looking at the documentation themselves.
I really like that high touch that you do, because I think that that's important. Is that helping when we do deferrals to
absolutely.
get the people ultimately through the process?
Yeah. It might take a couple tries, but
Might
yes,
take a
it-
couple.
yeah.
Well, and I will say this. One lesson that I learned from my dad. He was treasurer of that credit union when it got started, and he also took out the first loan. Don't ask him about internal controls, certainly. But as the CEO of the credit union said at the time, we can't just make money on investments. We have to make money on loans. That's what we do, and that's why he took that out, the loan for the camper trailer that I certainly got to benefit from it as a kid. One last question. I think this is a really important one. It's not just that we get new credit unions chartered. It's also important to know, how are they performing? Are they getting past 5 years? Are they getting, I know first 5 years we spend careful attention. Are they getting past 10 years? What does the data show there?
I'll take that
Okay,
question.
Leilani, sure.
So the performance right now varies. So it's really hard to tell. But to date, since 2018, we've had one credit union merge, but all the rest of them are in operations. And I'm happy to say that we have the rest of the remaining credit unions have been able to provide products and services to approximately 15,000 people. They have a total assets totaling $51.9 million, shared deposits of $34.8 million, and loans of $15.4 million. So they are operating and pursuing their mission.
Yeah, and I think we have to be a little careful when we say loans, because a couple of those credit unions are indeed Islamic credit unions associated with mosques that and it's against Islamic law to have a loan. That they have set up a fee structure that as a substitute for the interest overall. Thank you so much for those insights, Leilani. In closing, the chartering of a new credit union is often the culmination of years of high hopes and hard work by organizers. Consistent with the law, we at the NCUA need to facilitate the work. That's why the NCUA is making meaningful improvements to its chartering process where possible to bring new and more federal credit unions into the system. And doing so, we are providing consumers with greater access to safe, fair, and affordable financial products and services within the cooperative model. One last point that I just would like to make. I thought that together, all of the work that you and your team did at the MDI symposium was earlier this month, the week's fly by, but earlier this week was really an important set of work. And I hope that we continue to do that, because I got a lot of positive feedback from those credit unions that attended, many of which were new credit unions. In fact, one of our key presenters was a new credit union himself. With that, let me turn it over to the Vice Chairman.
Speaking of our good work at our events, I believe our DEI summit was in Minneapolis. That is connected in some manner to the fact that we've had two recent ones, quick charters in Minneapolis. Why we picked it?
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure if
versus
that's
Cleveland
right.
or someplace.
I actually think it was, we were thinking to try and get out of just
in the middle of the
state
quadrant,
so that we could get more people and different people to the table.
It was remarkable that before, I think it's important that because a third of the credit unions got their state charter, we make announcements about we did a charter, but I think it's equally important to say we granted insurance, because it's still the birth of a new credit union, and often their state has kind of finished theirs, and their answer is, we're all set. You just got to get insurance from NCUA. So it is still announcing the birth of a new credit union. So I think we should make, and the ways we've tried to, what gets measured, get done, what gets praised is considered good. We give shout outs to new credit unions. We praise our staff for getting going. Let me start with this though. Any of the new ones you've been around for the last, 4 years at least, may I ask, what's the largest amount at their birth of insured deposits? What I'm trying to get at is, The new credit unions are almost always small, right? There's no such thing as a charter for a $5 billion credit union we've had, right? Could convert from a bank or something. Yeah, what's the largest risk we've had in any of these new ones in the last few years? Do you know, ballpark?
I don't, unless Leilani.
20 million would be high, probably, right?
Yes, 20 million would be high. I would say probably, and again, I am totally just throwing it out there. Probably the highest would be around 5 million.
Yeah, the highest. And I think, is it $500,000 with the minimum, or capital at least? The
capital is really tied upon the risk associated, right?
It would be unusual to have anything below $500,000 or credit union.
Nowadays.
Yes. There's a handful out there that have 6 digits in assets who still exist, but what I'm trying to get at is the good thing about this and trying new things. And we know they're not all going to succeed. Right. Even the best franchising companies, they don't all work well, even if they have the best processes. But they're usually really small risks financially for us. So I think, we have to weigh risk. We have all of these credit unions we put together, adding it up, are a rounding error to some of the results we get. We have quarterly fluctuations at some of the larger ones that dwarf, in capital and in earnings and operating income, that dwarf the total risk for all of these. So that's another benefit, is that from a risk standpoint, they're usually very small. And if they're growing irresponsibly, we have mechanisms to tap the brakes, which we have done before. Here's my prepared remarks. You presented June of last year. I would encourage future boards, who obviously can do what they want, to keep this. I will take credit or blame for trying to create this a annual thing, but at least for me, this is way more interesting than some of the briefings we have. I'll tell you that. That briefing last year was focused on new charter modernization. So I appreciate this year putting the FOM information in there, where this has been a priority to me since my first board meeting. I actually mentioned it before that when I went through the settled confirmation process. To me, it's an inclusion issue. If we're making it any hard for any group of Americans to decide to have their own financial service provider, we are only paying lip service to all the words like financial inclusion and everything. And for over 90 years, forming a credit union has been the answer to financial inclusion. Hundreds of thousands of immigrants, religious groups, factory workers, and more. Americans should decide how many financial services providers we have. Every single one of the charters ever granted, it was somebody out there who wasn't totally satisfied with the existing financial services marketplace. So that's why would you start your own? 1934, the Federal Credit Union Act was signed by President Roosevelt and put the credit union division inside the Farm Credit Administration. Okay. NCUA itself didn't exist till 1970. So there was no federal charter until 1934. By that point, there were almost 3,000 credit unions. So the first 3,000 that were created in America had no interaction with anybody in our nation's capital because they were state charter and federal deposit insurance didn't exist. So right or wrong, that process was, I'm going to say, probably easier and quicker. So those people had an advantage for getting there early. Okay? The first 3,000 never touched anyone in Washington, chartered by the state, insured elsewhere. Things were a lot simpler in a lot of ways in 1934 than they are today. Getting it to a completed charter application could take years. The complexity of financial services changed. What hasn't changed is the importance of financial services to people of modest means and to having one that serves your community, however you want to define that. Last year, we had the chart. I'm holding up what you put last year. And charters per year. You have that one this year, too. And then this one was from receipt of a complete application to getting a charter of those that got a charter. Very useful to track. The one thing I remember looking at is we've noticed there's a lot of roadblocks to getting to complete, right? Where at that point you would not be in any part of this graph because you are not you have not fully applied. And that we're tracking now, right? And you put that up. And I know it can be acknowledged to pin down the exact start date sometimes, and you had to pick one. I know for a fact there are groups who talk to us, have meetings, including with then Chairman Hood, but they don't consider themselves to have applied. They were window shopping, just talking about it. Maybe we could track that somewhere, just indications of interest. But it's good to be able to have a date when it starts, because getting to complete application has been a roadblock. People have walked away that would never, ever have appeared in this anywhere because nor would they have ever been rejected. Their charter was denied because they never got to a complete application. much like applying to college, you can't be admitted or denied until you have a completed application. Test scores, got to get your transcript sent. And colleges have a lot of incentives to have a lot of applications. So if a lot of people were getting stuck in that part where they never fully applied, they have take actions to make that process easier, to make sure you get to make it clear. Here's what you have to do. Let's make it easy to do it. And so the people get stuck in it. If my college was having a lot of problems versus others, there's something wrong here, right? Because those people are not in our admissions rate at all. They're neither approved nor denied. I won't belabor the point. There was a group that had an unusual application. Interesting. I thought they were trying to do something different. And I agreed with the decision that to deny them the charter at that time. I agree with that. That was another reason. But a big part of the answer that they got was they didn't have any lending income in their initial phase. They could have added it. And they had many conversations with Cure. I have the documentation. They had face-to-face meetings. They gave the business plan, which I also have, and the dates all these things were sent. And when they got denied for the charter later, it was kicked back to them. They couldn't believe no one ever told them you have to have lending. I know most groups do, so you don't have to mention it. But they couldn't imagine you're opening up your college envelopes. Am I going to get in? Am I going to get in? Imagine you spoke to the admissions director multiple times. Imagine you didn't think that you had to have your test scores sent. You didn't think you personally had to take action. Maybe you thought the college got it automatically, right? It'd be wrong. But imagine you said that multiple times to the admissions office, right? I think I've done everything I have. I don't need to take action for you to get my test scores. And then it finally came around. Did I get admitted? Did I get in? Did I go, wait, listen? No, none of those. You never had to complete application. Why? Because you didn't get test scores. I literally told you 10 times that I didn't think. So could they have been told, even though it was an unusual case, and most people have lending income, in your initial in your application, you have to have lending. Could they have been told that? Like, is there a universe in which someone had said, we look at your business plan, you have to have lending income, right? National Credit Union Act, your interpretation, which I consider correct.
Yes.
Mentions credits. There's got to be something in there with credit. They were never told that, and they couldn't believe it. Months later, they got rejected, and one of the reasons was you didn't have lending. So we could have easily added that. Why didn't anybody tell us? We told them many times. Could they have been told that?
Yeah. I find it hard to believe they were not told that.
They were absolutely stuck. And no one could find any documentation that they were. As a matter of fact, I have documentation the other way around. It's not in their business plan. It's not in their performance. I understand that that's what the Credit Union Act says. But anyway, they find out it was not. And the documentation I have says, they said, here's what we know. Here's what we're planning on doing. Anyway, I'm glad we tracked the time it takes for a group to formally identify their field of membership until they successfully complete their application. That is a separate metric I think is very interesting. And let me ask you about the provisional charter. So I'm proud at myself and my advisor behind me, Sarah Bang, that was kind of our idea, but it is just an idea. We don't know if it's a eureka, right? Because, well, we can't get CDFI funds. We can't even apply until we're an institution. So I think we all agree with the problem, but this is why we have, beta testing. Mm-hmm. How is it? Was it a good idea? Is it working? Should we change it? Do we not have the groups yet, or what?
Yeah, I'll take that question. Thank you. I think, as with any pilot, you're going to find great things, and you're going to find things
that's why it's a pilot,
right, don't work so well. I think with the organizing groups, it's still a big change for them from when they're working through the application and now they're open. And that's when the real work starts. We hear that all the time from the organizing groups. Wow, we've shifted from cure to the field. And there's a lot of things we need to comply with. There's a lot of things we need to do in order to get those credit union doors open, besides finding the capital. So it's a matter of education, the organizing group getting the right people in the positions and getting them trained up, besides finding the capital. So that's why they have 12 months. During this period to do all of that work. And then at the end, we'll see if, number one, they obtain the capital that they signed for within their letter of understanding agreement, saying we commit to obtaining this amount of donated capital. And then the field makes the determination of, are you ready to open up your doors? And then we'll make an analysis at that point on how successful the pilot was.
Gotcha. I know we capped it at a certain number of these because it was a pilot.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
I know people that. And just the basic, like the idea that we thought was good, chicken and egg problem, has that actually been solved? Meaning when people say, I can get the money, I just need a charter. Like have those
That
checks
would-
come in right away? Like did that actually work?
That hasn't yet happened.
We're not at that point.
We're not at that point yet.
Okay. Because that, it doesn't work
We're
unless
still
they-
looking. Yeah, it's still difficult.
You
for
need a third party.
the organizing
to
group
say-
to find the money.
Right. Don't just believe,
Yeah.
no, we'll get the money. Have
Yeah.
someone say, I'm a grant giving operation or I'm Treasury's fund. I will write a check the day I get this. You know, you can, you're talking to the check writers to verify that, yes, these people actually will get the money. There is a chicken and egg.
Oh, we always
Right.
verify.
Okay. And they don't have any obligation from our standpoint to do it, but
No.
they say, yes, it is my plan. If the Martha Credit Union gets a charter that
Correct.
they get the charter on Monday, I'll give them a check on Tuesday. Right. I mean, that's what they say.
Yep.
We haven't gotten to that point to see if it actually works.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those other groups, the check writers, they're not going to stand around forever. So it's an incentive for everybody to get this done. I'll stop there. A lot of credit, I mentioned immigrants. There's actually, and you mentioned Islamic, I remember learning Sukuk. You know what that is? That is an Islamic bonds. Like we trade treasuries, government bonds in this country. That's mostly out of Dubai, a little bit in Singapore. There's that whole fascinating world of Islamic finance.
Yeah.
Governments have to raise money and people raise money, and it's kind of like that. But anyway, it's a whole fascinating field. But this is why it's terrific that this country still has over 8,000 depository institutions, banks and credit unions. A lot of countries in the world, imagine all we had was Citi, Wells, B of A, Wells Fargo, $4 trillion banks, right? Probably work all right if you had a solid job, direct deposit, spoke English, were an American citizen, had a social security number. It probably do okay. And that's what a lot of countries are. Right? In Australia, they have 4 banks and the government won't let any of them merge because they can be down to 3. Over 98% of Canadians are one of 6 banks, right? That's how it is. The fact that we have ones that know the corn crop, like they know the depreciation schedules by, they're all over this country. There's that. The ones that answer the phone in Haitian Creole in Florida, I assure you Citigroup will do that. And we want, I mentioned when we talk about true financial inclusion is letting any of these people have their own, okay? And when you look at the ones that are what we call ethnic credit unions, some of them are explicitly ethnic, like the 10 Ukrainian American credit unions, but a lot of others are de facto an ethnic group. I mean, because it may be a place of worship. The very first one in America was an immigrant group, French Canadians. Now it's not an ethnic French Canadian credit union. It's a church credit union. It's a French Catholic church, but it is a fact. Knights of Columbus is not technically an ethnic credit union, but it was Italian American men. The one last year, Alpha Kappa Alpha, right? That's not technically a thing, but it's an African American sorority, one of the Divine Line, right? Historically, HBCUs. So it's essentially a African American women thing, even though by the way it applies, it's just this fraternal organization. Right? Vice President Harris is a AKA member. I don't know if she joined the credit union, but she's an AKA from Howard. And what I care about is the groups now should have the same opportunity. You can't not notice that most of the ethnic credit unions or quasi-ethnic, like Knights of Columbus, it's from the earlier period of American immigration, right? Central Europe, Southern Europe. And post-1965, when this country kind of opened back up again, is primarily Asia and Latin America. Those people should have just as much chance as the Italians and Slavics and Poles did before. One of the benefits, last decade, the countries from Mexico, India, China, Venezuela, Honduras, Guatemala at the top. And then last couple of years, separate, Operation Allies Welcome was Afghanistan from the war from there, and Operation Uniting Ukraine, Gradius. One of those two, of Afghanistan and Ukraine, has the advantage of other people from that country came when it was easier to start a credit union, so they're Ukrainian American credit unions. These people, they can work under that refugee program. From what I've been told and what I've seen, they're showing up often with very little English ability, second or third language after Russian, Ukrainian, credit invisible, no FICO, unemployed. If they had a job in Ukraine, they quit it to come here. And guess who's giving them a share account? And unsecured credit cards. Unsecured, because it's hard to operate in this life sometimes without a credit card. These people, and they're doing what generations of immigrants have done. They are hustling. They're doing what they can. They're driving Uber Eats 70 hours a week. And their default rates, unsecured credit cards. Think about this. Can't necessarily fill out the application in English. literally no FICO history whatsoever, credit invisible, and unemployed. And their default rates are lower than the industry average for both credit unions and credit. Why? Well, because this is what credit unions do when they're done well. An affinity group, they know if they don't pay, first of all, it's going to be another Ukraine and it's going to come out of their pocket. And secondly, if you default on this credit card, I assure you, no one is ever going to give you what I get in your long way. Feel free to walk into any of the big banks and they serve a purpose and say, hi, don't speak English. I don't have a job. I have zero credit. Can I have an unsecured credit card? No way. And it's terrific. And I just think that the Venezuelans, Hondurans, Pakistanis, et cetera, deserve the same chance to have that as opposed to Slovaks, Italians, et cetera. That's just my view as to why I keep at this. Okay. A couple questions. So last year we had useful days of complete application to charter if it was granted. That other number, last couple of years, do you have an average length of time it took from when they kind of step one, they at least identify their field of membership, it's legit, from that to the completed application?
Yes. So I just want to,
I just threw a lot at you.
No, that's all right. I just want to restate. Phase one is when the organizing group submits their paperwork to get their field of membership approved. And once their field of membership is approved in the type of charter course that they're going to apply for, we invite them to start phase two. Phase two is the meat of the application. So that's business plan, marketing plan, pro forma statement, okay, and identification of capital. That's phase two. Phase three, it's basically wrapping it up, right? We've got to get the regular NCUA forms filled out. We complete the letter of understanding agreement with the field staff, and then the charter issuance. So from phase one completion, when we've approved the field of membership, and I took those three institutions that were chartered in both 2024 and then 2023. So from phase one completion until they submitted the completed application, the average number of days was 860.
Okay. And
then 2023, from phase one completion until completed, phase one completion until they submitted a completed application, 860 days. And then in 2023, 627. And then the second set of numbers, average from phase one application to charter approval was 1,187 days.
Ooh.
But let me break it down further. 187 days total. Organizing group, out of that 1,187, they had the paperwork for 873 days. And then when they submitted it and we did our analysis, we had it for 314 days.
So that one, the one number that stands out there is 800 something. That's over 2 years. That's to get to a completed application.
That is
right?
from phase one to a completed application submission.
Right. So for over 2 years, there's a group that feels, and we feel, they are actively want to start a credit union, but they're not at the completed application phase. Okay.
Right. So what can happen is phase one, we approve them and it might take them 6 months to get back with us to even submit an application. So it's the data we can track, but the nuances, it's hard to be reflected in the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when this is what averages are for. I'm going to suggest that so the FDIC puts the name, and they do it once they have a completed application, okay? They put the name of them. You can get all their averages and means. I mean, if you want to, you can just export the Excel and you can sort by all these things. I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't mind if we put averages and this sort of stuff up in the de novo area, okay? Maybe we can put high and low or something like that, because obviously averages can be thrown off by a weird situation. But I think it might be useful information because a lot of people, the one thing I hear over and over, we don't really know where we are. Like, is this, we know it's not going to be, we're not going to open our doors to all learning, but 10 years would be really bizarre and none of our partners would stay with us. 5 years is really long. They want some kind of handle. And the easiest thing to do without passing judgment on their application is just say actual data of what's happened, right? Some of them are complex, some of them are not. Anyway, I think that maybe averages and, that sort of data, I think, might be useful.
Yeah, I thought that there were some plans already underway to achieve that.
So, yes, we're are developing the requirements for a new charter system, which would take the application into a software program.
Yep.
Part of the software program would have a status tracker where the organizing group, not the public, but the organizing group could go in and see where they're at. So first phase passed, second phase in progress. They can check along the way. Third phase chartered. So they will have that within the actual application if that's developed.
And one of the annoying things to start anew is you got to have bylaws and policies, started. AI kind of helps with this actually, but that's something that takes a lot of time. We were talking about sample templates, that for various credit unions. Do we have those? Are those provided to creditors? Where can they find those?
Absolutely. On our website under new charters.
Yeah. So some of that paperwork, we have to create all these bylaws. What do we do? It might not be as hard as you think. And they are frequently changed once you're up and running. So you don't have to.
And a lot of times we partner organizing groups with newly chartered credit unions so they can learn from the group that just went through the process.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice thing about credit unions, how much they help each other. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you so much. Board Member Otska.
Thank you. And thanks, Martha and Leilani, for the presentation. Thank you to everyone in CURE for the work that you all do. I know it's not just limited to the presentation today. You all provide TA to credit unions, manage the community development revolving loan fund program, serve as a resource to small credit unions, list goes on. So chartering new credit unions is integral to maintaining a resilient and enduring credit union system. The Vice Chair, for example, mentioned how our country is unique. We have thousands of financial depository institutions, including thousands of credit unions. And so chartering new credit unions is very much part of that. New credit unions allow for more individuals to gain access to greater financial opportunities, such as saving for retirement, buying a new home, getting a loan, getting a credit card. It also creates increased competition in our financial system, which I think is extremely important because that ultimately leads to credit unions looking for better ways to serve their members and attract new ones, and is important if we want to maintain the financial system, the banking system that we have in this country. So on that note, I support CURE having the resources that it needs to process applications in a timely manner, including the expansion of Capri, which I believe is the software system that you were referring to have better functionality so that credit unions, yeah, thanks, Martha. Credit unions, the organizing groups have more insight, and that you all and the staff have the resources to better handle the increased amount of applications, of underserved area applications, of other types of charter applications that you guys are handling. So your presentation showed a slight uptick in the application processing time for new charters, even though it's still much lower than what it was prior to 2021. So I would like to work with my fellow board members and your office to make sure the new chartering process is running smoothly. We're communicating with credit unions in a timely manner, that kind of thing. I also want to thank you for your work on processing applications for underserved areas. Credit unions being able to serve these areas despite their original fields of membership, I think speaks to the purpose of our system of cooperative credit, which is to provide credit to those of modest means. However, we do need to continue to ensure that credit unions are indeed serving those communities, especially since we've had a significant uptick in those applications since 2021. So I really appreciate the work that you all have done to improve the process so far, including making sure that credit unions are actually providing the required service facilities in underserved areas, because ultimately this program exists to serve communities forgotten by the traditional bank system. And I want to make sure that we have not lost sight of that. So actually making sure people in underserved areas have a branch, a facility to go to get access to those services is really important. So appreciate all the work that you have done working with my office, my staff as well. I have no further questions, but look forward to our continued engagement on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Otska, and thank you to both you, Martha, and Leilani for your presentation. Before I close today, I just want to make a quick observation that this is, of course, the 90th anniversary of the Federal Credit Union Act occurred earlier this year. International Credit Union Day occurred last week. And as part of that, our team put out a new video that I encourage everybody to take a look at on our YouTube channel. You mentioned Franklin Delano Roosevelt earlier today, Vice Chairman Hallman, and he, a quote in that video says, "The test of our progress is not whether we add to the abundance of those who have so much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have so little." That is what credit unions are working to do. That is especially what new credit unions, low-income credit unions, community development credit unions are working to do. They're the ones that are providing the character loans, as I would frame it. They are the ones that are working to make sure that people of different faiths can get access to buy a home. They're the ones that are helping people who are incarcerated to maintain an account. We need to do all that we can to make sure that everybody in our financial system can have access to financial services. It will make it for a stabler democracy, a better democracy, and for us all. With that concludes our agenda today. There being no further business, we are hereby adjourned.
This concludes the FOM briefing. If your credit union could use assistance with your exam, reach out to Mark Treichel on LinkedIn or at marktreichel.com. This is Samantha Shares, and we thank you for listening.